Each November 5th, Britain lights up to commemorate a plot that nearly reshaped its history. Guy Fawkes, now a symbol of dissent in masque and bonfire, is celebrated and condemned, seen by some as a revolutionary hero, by others as a figure of terror. But who truly was Guy Fawkes, and what drove him towards such a drastic act of defiance? At the dawn of the 17th century, England was engulfed in religious strife. King James I ascended to the throne with a vision of a unified Christian church under his rule, a vision that clashed with the practices and beliefs of many of his subjects. His policies towards Roman Catholics were particularly harsh, with oaths of allegiance that repudiated the Pope and heavy fines for missing Anglican services, breeding a cauldron of fear and resentment. In this climate of oppression and secret resistance, a group of Catholic dissenters began to form a desperate plan. Among them was Guy Fawkes, a veteran of the Spanish War, known for his staunch Catholic faith and military expertise. They sought not just to protest, but to spark a dramatic upheaval. Their target, the very heart of British power, the Parliament. Their plan, bold and ruthless, aimed at more than just assassinating the king. By obliterating the Parliament during its opening session, with King James and his lawmakers present, they intended to decapitate the British government, paving the way for a Catholic monarch. It was a plot that would have reshaped the history of the nation. Born on April 13, 1570, in York, England, Guy Fawkes was the second of 4 children born to Edward Fawkes, a proctor and advocate of the consistory court at York, and his wife Edith. His early life seemed typical for the time, but the death of his father when Guy was just 8 years old marked a turning point. His mother later remarried, this time to a Catholic, which significantly influenced the young Fawkes, steering him toward the faith that would later define his actions. Fawkes attended St. Peter's School in York, where he encountered classmates who would also be implicated in the Gunpowder plot. However, it was his military career, which began in his late 20s, that brought him into direct contact with the harsh realities of religious wars. Fawkes left England for Flanders, where he fought for Catholic Spain against the Protestant Dutch in the 80 Years' War. During his time in the Spanish military, Fawkes gained considerable expertise in handling explosives, a skill that would later prove central to the Gunpowder plot. His dedication and ability earned him respect and trust among his peers, as well as the nickname Guido, by which he was known among his fellow soldiers. By the time he returned to England in 1604, Guy Fawkes was a man transformed. No longer just a soldier, he had become a fervent believer in the Catholic cause, disillusioned with the ongoing persecution of Catholics under King James. His military experience and deep-seated faith made him the perfect recruit for a group of conspirators who were plotting nothing less than a revolution. With a clear motive rooted in religious zeal and equipped with military skills honed on European battlefields, Guy Fawkes joined a group of like-minded conspirators in 1604. Their ambitious and deadly objective was nothing less than the complete overthrow of the English government. The mastermind behind the plot was Robert Catesby, a charismatic Catholic figure who believed that drastic action was needed to end the oppression of Catholics in England. Catesby's plan was audacious: to blow up the House of Lords during the state opening of Parliament, an event attended by the King, his closest relatives, and the entire Assembly of Government. Guy Fawkes was given a critical role due to his expertise with explosives. The plan involved smuggling 36 barrels of gunpowder into the cellars beneath the House of Lords, enough to obliterate the building and everyone in it. Fawkes was to light the fuse and then escape across the Thames before the explosion. As November 5, 1605, approached, the conspirators were confident. The gunpowder was in place, and their plans were set. However, the plot was about to unravel from within, sparked by concerns for the safety of fellow Catholics who would be present at the opening of Parliament. The turning point came on October 26th, when Lord Monteagle, a Catholic nobleman, received an anonymous letter urging him to avoid the state opening of Parliament. The letter hinted at a terrible event, suggesting that they shall receive a terrible blow this Parliament, and yet they shall not see who hurts them. Alarmed by the letter's ominous tone, Monteagle promptly delivered it to Robert Cecil, the Secretary of State. Cecil, a shrewd political operator, sensed the gravity of the threat, but chose to bide his time, waiting to see how the plot might further unravel. The letter did not immediately lead to an investigation of the Parliament cellars. Instead, Cecil used it to gather more information, aware that acting too hastily could tip off the conspirators. It wasn't until the day before the plot's intended execution that King James himself was shown the letter. James, with his keen interest in biblical prophecy, interpreted the vague warning to mean gunpowder. Acting on the king's interpretation, authorities conducted a thorough search of the Parliament buildings. On the night of November 4th, they found Guy Fawkes, posing as John Johnson, ostensibly a servant, in the cellars, guarding the explosives. Caught red-handed in the early hours of November 5th, 1605, Guy Fawkes faced immediate arrest. Under the alias John Johnson, he initially remained steadfast, revealing nothing about his co-conspirators or the extent of the plot during initial questioning. King James, fascinated yet horrified by the audacity of the plot, ordered that Fawkes be put to the question, a euphemism for torture. Taken to the Tower of London, Fawkes endured days of severe torture, most likely on the rack, in an effort to extract names and motives. Broken by the relentless torture, Fawkes eventually confessed and provided the names of his fellow conspirators. His signed confession, noticeably shaky from his physical ordeal, sealed not only his fate, but also that of his allies. Guy Fawkes was sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered, the standard punishment for treason. However, on January 31st, 1606, moments before his execution, Fawkes leapt from the scaffold where he was to be hanged, breaking his neck and dying instantly, perhaps his final act of defiance against the excruciating fate that awaited him. Guy Fawkes's body was nonetheless quartered, and his remains were sent to the four corners of the kingdom as a grim warning against treason. His death marked a poignant end to the infamous Gunpowder plot, leaving a legacy that continues to ignite debates about tyranny, terrorism, and heroism. More than 4 centuries after his death, Guy Fawkes remains a figure of debate. Annually on November 5th, as effigies known as Guys are set ablaze atop bonfires across Britain, we're reminded of the Gunpowder plot's failure and its violent intentions. In modern culture, Guy Fawkes has transcended his historical roots to become a global icon of dissent and defiance. The graphic novel and film V for Vendetta popularised his stylised mask, which has been embraced by movements fighting against tyranny and injustice. Most notably, the mask has been adopted by Anonymous, an international hacktivist group known for its impactful cyber operations against government, religious, and corporate entities. This mask, once a mere representation of a failed plotter, now serves as a potent symbol of anonymity and unity in global protests and cyber activism. It raises compelling questions about the nature of Fawkes's legacy. Is he remembered as a terrorist who sought to disrupt through violence, or as a freedom fighter advocating for change against oppressive systems? The usage of Fawkes's mask by Anonymous and at various protests worldwide provokes a debate that extends beyond Fawkes himself, touching on broader themes of rebellion, violence, and the quest for political change. Are such acts justified in pursuit of greater good? And who decides whether figures like Fawkes are heroes or villains? As the echoes of fireworks fade and the last embers of bonfire night burn out, the figure of Guy Fawkes remains shrouded in a mixture of admiration and infamy. Was he a freedom fighter who took a stand against an oppressive regime? Or was he a terrorist who chose violence and bloodshed as tools for change? The lens through which we view his actions often reflects our own perspectives on authority, resistance, and the moral boundaries of fighting for justice.